I want to start today with a premise that I admit sounds a little bit crazy, but I have a feeling that by the end of this deep dive, you might actually start to agree with it. So here's the premise. SEO is dead. Not, dying or changing, dead. And the thing that's replacing it isn't just a better search engine. It's essentially a credit score.
That is a bold opener. I'll give you that.
Right.
But, looking at the source material we have today, you're not exactly wrong.
Right.
We're looking at this really dense, incredibly technical piece of analysis. It's titled The Architecture of Networked Credibility: How AI is Turning Influencers, Media, and Search into One Unified Reputation Score.
That subtitle is where the whole thing just explodes in your mind. This idea that AI is merging these three completely distinct worlds: influencers, media, and search.
Worlds that we've always thought of as, separate silos.
Totally separate.
Yeah, you go to Google for, raw answers. You go to the New York Times for vetted news. And you go to TikTok or YouTube for a personality you trust.
3 different behaviors, 3 different platforms.
But the thesis here, the core argument, is that AI is just dissolving the walls between them. It's creating a single, unified metric. And that's the phrase that jumps out: the unified reputation score.
That's the phrase that stopped me in my tracks. Unified reputation score. It sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
It does. It sounds like that one Black Mirror episode, right? Where everyone's rating each other.
Exactly. But the author here isn't writing fiction. They're making an argument that this is the inevitable result of how large language models actually work.
It is. And to really get why this is happening right now, you have to understand that for the last 20 years, the internet was built on a totally fragmented system of value.
Fragmented how? What do you mean by that?
Well, just think about how you used to measure success on the old internet. If you were a website, success was PageRank. It was all about backlinks.
Right. How many other important sites linked to you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you were a newspaper, success was prestige, subscriptions, institutional clout. And if you were an influencer, success was engagement, likes, follows.
These were completely different currencies.
Totally different currencies. You couldn't really exchange one for the other.
Yeah, I could be a massive star on Instagram, but be completely invisible on Google.
Precisely. But the argument in The Architecture of Network Credibility is that AI doesn't care about those old currencies. AI has its own currency, and it is actively weaving these 3 worlds into a single architecture.
That's the word from the title, architecture. It's not an accident. It's being built.
It's being built.
Yeah.
It's no longer about keywords or headlines or subscriber counts in isolation. It's about how they all feed into one sort of master calculation of credibility.
So, okay, this isn't just a tech update we're talking about here. This is about who gets to be heard in the future, who gets amplified, and who gets completely muted.
That's it. We are talking about the underlying infrastructure of validity. If you don't have a high score in this new system, you don't just lose some traffic. You effectively disappear from the answer. You cease to exist in the conversation.
Okay, I want to get into the nuts and bolts of this because it feels really abstract right now. I need to understand what networked credibility actually means in practice for you, for me, for anyone listening. But before we get to the new world that this source describes, I think we have to properly understand the old world. The paper calls this deconstructing the silos.
Right. The before picture.
So we mentioned the 3 pillars: search, media, and influencers. Let's really break them down, but I want to get technical for a second. Why are they so separated? I mean, why didn't Google just measure influencer trust 10 years ago?
It really comes down to what machines could actually read. Let's take search. Classic Google. We think of it as this all-knowing entity, but historically, it was more like a librarian, a blind librarian.
A blind librarian. Okay, I like that.
It couldn't read the content of the book. It could only look at the index card. It could only look at the metadata. It relied on PageRank.
Which is basically a voting system, right? A popularity contest.
At its best, it's a voting system. It's a mechanical proxy for trust. If a site like the New York Times links to your blog, Google's math says, okay, that's a vote from a high authority node. And this is the absolute key. The algorithm didn't understand what you actually wrote. It just understood the link structure.
So it was mapping the wires, not the conversation happening on the wire.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And because it was purely mechanical, you could game it. This is why the internet became this mess of top 10 best toaster articles that were just stuffed with keywords.
Right. Because you didn't actually need to be an expert on toasters?
No. You just needed to structure your data in a way that the blind librarian could feel with its fingers.
Okay, so that's the search silo. Mechanical, structural, all about links. Then you have the influencer silo, and this runs on a totally different currency.
Completely different. Influencers run on what academics call parasocial sentiment.
Which is just a really fancy way of saying, I feel like we're friends.
It is. It's a one-sided relationship that feels two-sided. You watch a YouTuber or a TikToker every single day. You see into their bedroom, you see them drink their morning coffee. You trust them, not because they have a PhD and not because they rank #1 on Google, but because you like them. It's pure personality-driven trust.
Here's the thing, Google couldn't see any of that.
Zero visibility. An algorithm in, say, 2015 couldn't watch a video of a crying YouTuber apologizing and understand why their audience suddenly trusts them more. That emotional data was completely invisible to a search engine.
So that's how you got this massive disconnect. You could be the most trusted person in the world on TikTok for, I don't know, vegan cooking, but have absolutely zero footprint on Google because you didn't have a website with the right backlinks. You were a ghost to the search silo.
And then you have the third pillar, media. The New York Times, The Guardian, The Wall Street Journal. This is the institutional silo.
The establishment.
Right. The model of credibility in traditional media is all about gatekeepers. You trust an article, not because of the specific words used, and certainly not because you feel parasocially connected to the reporter.
No, you don't even know who the reporter is half.
Exactly. You trust it because it has a masthead at the top that has existed for 100 years.
Top-down authority.
Very top-down. Authority is granted by the institution. You trust the journalists because the institution vetted them. It's really the opposite of search. Search is democratic, but in a chaotic way. Media is aristocratic. It's all about petting.
Okay, so just to crystallize this before we move on, you have search, which is based on mechanical links. You have influencers based on emotional connection. And you have media based on institutional authority. And the source's argument is that for the last 2 decades, you could be a star in one of those silos and a complete nobody in the others.
Worse, you could be a star in one and a villain in the others.
That's interesting. Give me an example.
Okay, think about the classic archetype of the crypto guru from a few years back.
I can picture the YouTube thumbnail already. Laser eyes.
Right, exactly. So on YouTube or on Twitter, the influencer silo, this person is a god.
Yeah.
They have millions of followers, insane engagement, incredibly high trust. Their audience hangs on every single word they say.
They're a prophet.
They're a prophet. But then you go over to the media silo, the financial press, the Wall Street Journal, and they were either completely ignored or they were explicitly called a scammer.
And what about the search silo? What would Google say?
Well, in the search silo, you might find a few Reddit threads calling them out, maybe a couple of critical blog posts, or you might find nothing at all. The signal was just a mess.
So the reality was totally fractured. My truth as a follower of this person was completely different from the truth of a Wall Street Journal reader.
Exactly. We mentally compartmentalized it. We just knew that Google results were a different thing from news results, which were a different thing from what my favorite creator said.
Yeah.
We accepted the fracture.
This source, the architecture of networked credibility, it's basically saying that this separation is over.
It's saying the walls are not just crumbling, they're being actively demolished.
Yeah, the title uses that phrase, how AI is turning. And I love that active verb there, turning. It implies that AI isn't just a passive observer of the internet, it's an active force that is reshaping it.
That is the absolute crux of the argument. AI doesn't read the internet like a human does, and certainly doesn't index it like old school Google used to. A human sees a newspaper and thinks authority. A human sees a TikTok dance and thinks entertainment. And AI just sees data point.
Data points in a, what? Like a spreadsheet.
In a high dimensional space, it's all just math.
Okay, this is where we need to slow down and really, really unpack the mechanism because the source material gets pretty heavy here. It talks about one unified reputation score. How on earth does an AI actually combine a TikTok video and a New York Times article? They're apples and oranges. They're completely different formats.
They're different formats to us. To an LLM, a large language model, they're just vectors.
Vectors. Okay, that's a word we hear a lot.
We have to talk about how these models process reality. They don't look for keywords. That's the old way. They look for something called semantic proximity.
Break that down for me. Semantic proximity.
Okay, imagine the entire internet isn't a list of websites, but a giant 3D map of concepts, a vector space. In this space, the concept of, say, the Earth and the concept of round are mathematically very close together. They sit right next to each other in the coordinates of this map.
And I'm guessing the concept, the Earth and flat.
Very, very far apart, miles away on the map.
Got it. So it's a map of meaning, not of length.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now apply that same logic to reputation. In this new architecture, The AI ingests everything. It reads the New York Times article about a new medical study. That's media. It then transcribes and analyzes the TikTok video from a doctor discussing that study. That's the influencer. And it reads the millions of search queries from people asking about it. That's search. It maps all of them onto this same 3D space.
So it's not counting backlinks anymore. It's comparing the meaning of what that doctor said on TikTok to the meaning of what appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine.
Precisely. And that is the unified reputation score. It's a measure of consistency across that entire vector space. It's a measure of alignment.
Can we walk through a concrete example? Let's take a controversial one. Let's say I'm a health influencer, a wellness guru, and I go on camera and I say, eating raw garlic every day cures the flu.
Okay. So in the old world, if you have 1 million followers, that video goes viral. Your audience believes you because of that deep parasocial trust we talked about. Search might show something different, but your audience isn't looking at search. They're looking at you. The silos protect you. You can exist in your own reality.
Yeah, I stay in my bubble. The scientific consensus stays in its bubble.
But in the unified reputation architecture, the AI is analyzing your claim in real time. It hears garlic cures flu. It converts that statement into a vector on its map. Then it immediately checks the media and academic clusters in that same vector space. It sees that the consensus among medical journals, government health sites, and reputable news outlets is no, garlic does not cure the flu. There's no evidence for that.
So it spots the distance on the map, the huge gap between my claim and the consensus.
It measures the mathematical distance between your claim and what we can call the anchor nodes of authority. And because that distance is too wide, it flags the contradiction.
But here's the networked part at the title. It doesn't just flag the video.
No. And this is the really scary or powerful part, depending on your perspective. It penalizes you. It lowers your personal unified reputation score. Because you, as a node in this network, are now broadcasting information that severely conflicts with the high authority nodes.
It penalizes the source, not just the statement.
It penalizes the entity. And here's where the unified part kicks in with a vengeance. Because your score has dropped, the next time you post a video, the algorithm might suppress it. But it goes further than that. If someone goes to Google the search silo and types in your name, the AI-generated answer at the top might now say, this influencer has a history of promoting claims with low factual accuracy regarding health and wellness.
Wow. So the bad behavior in the influencer silo directly infects your standing in the search silo. The walls are gone.
They're gone. And it works the other way too. Let's say a major media outlet publishes a story that gets immediately and comprehensively debunked by thousands of subject matter experts on social media, and let's say those experts have high reputation scores themselves. In theory, the media outlet's own reputation score could take a hit from that. It's a two-way street.
That is fascinating. So it's a living web of credibility. If I say something and a bunch of verified experts agree with me, my score goes up. If I say something and the data contradicts me, my score plummets.
Correct. It is a dynamic, constantly updating calculation of trust. It's not static anymore. You can't just have a good reputation from 10 years ago. You have to actively maintain it second by second against the entire network of information.
I have to push back on this a little bit, though. I mean, we've seen people game every single version of the internet so far. We gamed SEO with keyword stuffing. We gamed social media with bot farms. Why can't I game this new system?
Okay, so how would you try?
Well, if I know the AI is looking for consensus, can I just manufacture consensus?
You mean like create a bunch of fake websites that all agree with your garlic theory?
Exactly. I'll buy 500 bots, have them write a bunch of scientific-sounding papers, post them on 500 different blogs, and have them all link to and cite each other. Boom! Now I have a consensus. Checkmate.
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And the source argues that doing that is an order of magnitude harder, maybe even impossible, compared to buying backlinks or likes.
But why? If the AI is just looking for patterns, why can't I just create a convincing fake pattern?
Because of those anchor nodes I mentioned earlier. The system isn't just floating in space, it's tethered to reality. The AI models are almost certainly trained to treat certain domains, major universities, .edu, government sites.gov, legacy media archives as ground truth anchors.
So they're the bedrock. They're the foundation of the whole architecture.
They're the foundation. So if you create your 500 fake blogs that all say garlic cures flu, the AI sees a tight little cluster of 500 nodes all agreeing with each other. But it also sees that this cluster has zero semantic connection to the anchor nodes. The New York Times isn't citing your fake blogs. Harvard Medical School isn't referencing your AI-generated papers.
AI identifies my little cluster as an island, an isolated anomaly.
It identifies it as what some engineers call a hallucination cluster.
Hmm.
It's a self-referential bubble of information that has no connection to the established body of knowledge. It's a hollow shell.
So to truly game the system, I wouldn't just need 500 blogs.
No. You would need to somehow get the real New York Times or a verified academic journal to cite one of your fake blogs. You'd have to build a bridge from your fake island to the mainland of the anchor nodes.
Which is basically impossible, or at least really, really expensive and difficult.
Exactly. The cost of gaming the system suddenly becomes the cost of actually corrupting the core institutions of truth themselves.
That sounds remarkably secure. On one hand, it feels like the end of fake news, the end of spam. It's the clean, well-lit internet we were always promised. But let's look at part 3 of the outline, because there is a huge flip side to this. The source uses the word architecture. And an architecture implies a design, it implies rules.
Architecture implies constraints. It implies that the web isn't just a messy, chaotic pile of information anymore. It's being actively structured, organized.
And if the entire system is anchored to these establishment nodes, doesn't that make the system incredibly conservative by design?
That is the dark side of this paper. That is the dystopian reading of it. A unified reputation score is, in effect, an establishment compliance score.
Because if trust just equals agreeing with the anchor nodes, then how does a radical new idea ever break through?
It becomes exceptionally difficult. Think about someone like Galileo.
Right. Classic example. The Earth revolves around the sun.
In his time, the anchor nodes, the church, the universities, the scientific consensus of the day all said, no, the sun revolves around the Earth. That was the established truth.
So in a networked credibility system run by an AI in the 17th century, Galileo would have a terrible reputation score.
He would be flagged as misinformation. His vector distance from the truth cluster would be massive. The AI would suppress his writings. Search results for Galileo would come with a big warning label. This user promotes theories inconsistent with established astronomy.
That is a genuinely chilling thought, because so much of history is made by the people who dare to disagree with the consensus.
Correct. The system described in this document optimizes for consistency, not necessarily for the discovery of radical new truths. It's designed to penalize outliers. And almost all major innovation comes from outliers.
So we're trading the chaos of the old internet for a new kind of order. But the cost of that order is that we might accidentally silence the next Galileo because he just doesn't fit the established pattern.
That is the fundamental risk. The AI acts as a normativity engine. It forces everything to regress to the mean of what is currently accepted as true.
But let's look at the other side of that architecture point, because the outline also mentions flattening the hierarchy. While it might hurt the radical outlier, it could also hurt the lazy incumbent, couldn't it?
Yes, and this is the utopian angle of the whole thing. In the old world, the New York Times is way up here, and a random independent blogger is way down here. There's a very clear hierarchy of prestige.
The brand name wins by default.
The brand name wins. But in an AI-driven reputation score model, that hierarchy becomes much more fluid and dynamic. Let's say that random blogger does a 6-month deep dive investigation into some local issue. They cite all their sources perfectly. They use data that checks out against the AI's knowledge base. They get cross-referenced and praised by other experts in that specific field.
So they're building that networked credibility from the ground up.
Exactly. And at the same time, let's say a major news outlet publishes a rushed, sloppy story based on a single anonymous rumor.
Which, let's be honest, happens.
It happens all the time. In this new architecture, the AI might actually assign a higher credibility score to the random blogger's piece than to the legacy media outlet's piece, at least for that specific topic. The AI doesn't care about the fancy brand name as much as it cares about the semantic consistency and the network validation.
That is a massive disruption. It completely separates the reputation from the institution. Just because you are a newspaper doesn't mean you automatically get 100 out of 100 score anymore. You have to earn it with every single article, every single day.
It flattens the playing field in a way that is incredibly exciting for independent creators who are actually doing the hard work. If you are right, and you can prove you're right with data and sources, you win. The AI validates you based on the quality of your content, not the logo on your website.
But again, this brings us right back to the central question. Who trains the AI? If the AI is the ultimate judge, who writes the laws that it enforces?
That is the pivotal question of the next decade. The source text talks about consensus and patterns, But ultimately, the architects of this whole system are the handful of companies building these foundational models.
So Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, they are, in effect, designing the physics of truth for the 21st century.
They are defining the topology of the vector space. They're choosing which nodes get to be anchors and which ones are just left to float.
I want to pivot now to what this really means for the listener, because we promised at the start we'd unpack the so what of all this. We're in part 4 now. If I am just a normal person, sitting at home, scrolling on my phone, how does this invisible unified reputation score actually change my life? Does the internet actually look different to me in, say, 2026?
It looks completely fundamentally different. Think about how you use Google right now. You type something in and you get a list of 10 blue links. It's a list of suggestions. You still have to do the work. You have to click, you have to read, you have to judge. Is this site sketchy? Is this one legit?
I'm the filter. The final filter is my own brain.
You are the filter. But in the very near future, and frankly, we are already seeing this roll out with things like AI overviews. The search result page, as we know it, just evaporates. It's gone.
Replaced by what?
Replaced by a single synthesized answer. An AI-generated paragraph that has already done all the reading and filtering for you. But here's the crucial part. That answer is constructed only from sources that met the credibility threshold.
So if a source has a low score, it's not like I'll see it at the bottom of the page on page 2 or 3. I just won't see it at all.
It effectively ceases to exist in your world. The AI creates a credibility layer between you and the raw, messy internet. And anything that doesn't pass the filter is simply not included in the reality presented to you.
That is the ultimate filter bubble. It's not a bubble of opinion anymore. It's a bubble of sanitized truth.
It's incredibly efficient. It saves you time. You don't have to wade through all the junk and the spam. But it also means you are entrusting your entire worldview to that score. You're trusting that the AI's definition of what's credible happens to match your own.
So the invisible hand of this algorithm has already decided what I'm allowed to see before I even finish typing my question.
Effectively, yes. We are moving from a pull internet, where you actively go out and find information, to a pushed internet, where a curated truth is fed to you based on the reputation of the sources. And if your business has a low score, you aren't on page 2. You simply aren't part of the final answer. You are, for all intents and purposes, deleted from the conversation.
This has just monumental implications for anyone trying to build a career or a brand or a business. The outline mentions the creator professional. If I'm a consultant or a small business owner or an artist, what do I do in this new world?
This is the really practical advice that you can derive from the source material. In the past, you could build a successful strategy by saying, you know what? I'm going to be a LinkedIn influencer. I don't care about the press. I don't care about my website's SEO. I just want to crush it on LinkedIn.
And that worked for a lot of people. You could build an entire business inside one of those silos.
It absolutely worked. But if networked credibility is the new standard, that strategy is suddenly incredibly dangerous. Because if you are only loud and credible in one room, the AI sees you as an anomaly, a curiosity. To build a high reputation score, you need to be multidimensional.
You need a unified strategy to earn a unified score.
That's it, exactly. You need to create your own valuable content. Sure, that's the influencer piece. But you also need to be cited or referenced by other authoritative bodies in your field. That's the media and validation piece. And you need to be discoverable in a way that aligns with what real people are actually searching for. That's the search piece. You have to plant flags in all 3 territories simultaneously.
Just sounds exhausting.
It is much harder. The bar is significantly higher. You can't just be viral anymore. You have to be verified. And I don't just mean a blue check mark you pay $8 for. I mean verified by the entire semantic network.
There's another risk factor here that we absolutely have to talk about. The fragility of this score. If everything is unified, if my search ranking, my media presence, and my social reach are all tied to this one invisible number, what happens when things go wrong?
This is the fundamental danger of centralization. In the old siloed world, if you got some bad press, you could still retreat to your loyal social media following. They'd still have your back. Or if you got banned from Twitter, you could still rank on Google and reach people through your website. You had lifeboats.
A diversification of risk.
Exactly. But in a unified reputation model, the risk is completely correlated. If a scandal hits you and the media turns on you, the AI picks up on that massive wave of negative sentiment. Your score plummets.
And because your score plummets,
suddenly your content starts being suppressed on social platforms because your influencer score is now low. And your website completely drops out of the AI answers because your search score is in the gutter.
It's a cascade failure. One hit takes everything down.
It is a kill switch, an instantaneous and total deplatforming. And it's not because a human moderator at one company pressed a button. It's because your score fell below the acceptable threshold across the entire architecture.
That brings us right back to that phrase from the title, networked credibility. The network can support you and lift you up, but the network can also close in and strangle you.
And it happens at the speed of algorithms, not at the speed of human debate or appeal. There is no appeal process to a vector space.
It's a lot to process. We started this deep dive talking about this massive shift from the information age to the reputation age, and I have to say, the source makes a very compelling case that this isn't science fiction. This is happening right now.
It is. We can see the outlines of it in how Google's AI overviews work. We see it in how platforms like TikTok are starting to prioritize educational or authoritative value over just pure shock value.
Yeah.
The convergence is already underway. The hyperlink, which was the fundamental glue of the old web, is being replaced.
Replaced by what?
Replaced by the embedding, the invisible mathematical connection between ideas. We aren't clicking from site to site anymore. We are navigating a sea of synthesized reputation.
So to try and recap this whole thing, we are moving away from the comfortable separate silos. Search, media, and influencers are no longer different games you can choose to play. They are being melted down by AI into a single, unified architecture of networked credibility.
And the one and only currency of this new realm is the unified reputation score, a holistic, constantly updating measure of how trustworthy you are, based on the AI's reading of the entire digital network.
It's the end of gaming the system with cheap tricks, but it's also the beginning of a system that might be impossible to argue with if it gets you wrong.
That is the fundamental trade-off. We get a cleaner, more factual, less spammy internet. Sanitized truth, if you will. But we lose the messy, chaotic, sometimes ugly freedom of the old web, where anyone could be heard, regardless of their score.
The reputation score is completely invisible to us, but as you said, it is going to dictate everything we see, everything we learn, and everything we buy. It is the invisible hand of the 21st.
And we were all being scored continuously, every second of every day, whether we signed up for it or not.
Which leads me to the one question I want to leave everyone with today. It's a bit of a provocative thought, but honestly, I can't stop thinking about it.
Okay, let's hear it.
If this system is real, if an AI has already assigned you a unified reputation score right this second, based on everything you've ever posted online, every comment you've ever made, everything you've searched for, and every person who has ever tagged you, if that number exists on a server somewhere right now, would you want to know what it is?
That is the question, isn't it? I mean, part of me, the ego part, desperately wants to know. But another part of me is absolutely terrified that it's way lower than I think it is.
I think I'd be obsessed. I'd be refreshing the page every 5 minutes, trying to get it to go up by 1 point. I promise I'll read more serious news articles, just raise my score.
I'll stop watching cat videos, I swear. Look, I'm citing a peer-reviewed journal in my next tweet.
Exactly. Please, algorithm. I'm smart, I promise. It's the only currency that matters now.